Poke the Bear is brought to you by Prizepicks.
And welcome into Poke the Bear, episode 343, presented by Prizepicks. Go use that promo code CLNS to get $50 back when you play just $5. And of course, we're brought to you by CLNS Media, who makes this all possible. Make sure to go subscribe to Bruins Ringside on YouTube. Maybe like, subscribe, leave us a review, comment, turn on notifications, all that fun stuff. We have a lot of podcasts throughout the off season, throughout the regular season. And then obviously make sure to go subscribe to CLNS's awesome other content, Patriots Press Pass, Celtics All Access, all that great stuff over there. I'm Evan Marinofski. That's Conor Ryan. Conor, what is up?
Evan, it's been a long day, but I'm doing okay. How you doing?
Doing great. Doing great. Bruins still have James Hagens, so I'm happy. But
yeah, let's talk about James Hagens. That's what we're talking about all day today, right?
That's right. We're just talking dev camp today, right? Nothing else happened. The excitement, I think, for Bruins fans, for media, for onlookers, for whoever, from James Hagens in the draft this past weekend, sort of got tarnished a little bit on Tuesday with free agency. Fans are not happy. I know we were all in the press box at Warrior, and everyone was kind of like, what is going on here? Let's run through the moves on Tuesday. First things first, they traded for Victor Arvidsson from the Oilers for a 5th-round pick. Then they got into signings. Tanner Jeannot, 5 years times $3.4 million annually. Sean Corrali, 2 years times $1.85 million annually. Michael Asimont, forward, 2 years, $1.45 million annually. Forgive me if I say this incorrectly. Matej Blumel, 1 year, $850,000. Alex Steves, forward, 1 year, $850,000. Jordan Harris, 1 year, $825,000. Haverhill native. Riley Tufte, 1 year, 2-way contract, $775,000. Jonathan Asperat, 1 year, 2-way, $775,000. Then they signed a goalie, Luke Cavalin, entry-level deal, $775,000. So some of that is going to just be like, all right, those are bottom six guys. I think what fans are most pissed off about is Tanner Jeannot, 5 years, $3.4 million annually, which when I saw that, I was like, excuse me, what did they do? What are the Bruins doing? Like, what is this? We knew this was not going to be a great free agency class. You were not going to upgrade, your top six drastically. This was, a lot of teams have cap space. A lot of teams have even more cap space than you. Just a ton of bottom six guys who, to me, don't really move the needle.
Yeah, it's not the most encouraging day, I would probably say, right? No. I think if you're a Bruins fan. And from talking to Don Sweeney, it seems like their priority was adding a buzzword that Don Sweeney used quite a bit was competitiveness and intensity, physicality, all those kinds of things, which I wonder from their perspective. I'm not saying this is the right call because I think we're on the same boat, probably with a lot of Bruins fans who are expecting a little bit more in terms of maybe talent. You do wonder from the Bruins perspective if the fact that the free agency class just completely dried up, right? I mean, today sucked in terms of there was no really earth-shattering moves. Brock Besser doesn't even leave Vancouver. Marty Necas is on a cruise probably somewhere having Mai Tais. He's like, I'll deal with this later. So not a whole lot of movement in terms of the really franchise fortune-changing high-end talent that the Bruins obviously need. So I wonder if they look at, they were clearly dissatisfied with how this past year went in terms of not just the results, but I think maybe the competitiveness, the intensity, and they wanted to have a couple of, maybe cage rattlers, I guess is maybe the apt term in terms of, this is a team that has a lot of younger players coming up. They have a lot of new players that are trying to establish themselves, maybe having some prickly players or maybe established veterans, right? Like the Jeannots or the Sean Corrales, these types of players. If the younger players can learn and feed off that energy and you're able to, sprinkle that talent throughout the lineup, I guess that's the way they're going with in terms of just how the free agency class played itself out. But you just look at the depth chart, right? And doesn't it feel like the Bruins have 4 fourth lines? Beyond we know Geeky, Lindholm, Pasta, but then it's all right, your second line is Zaka, Middlestat, Arvidsson, most likely. And then it's yikes, right? Because it's just, the Bruins can maybe look at this past year and thinking they needed a lot of those cage rattlers, or just more intensity, more, guys that are going to be really locked in. And that's something that even Marco Sturm mentioned, right? Of like, practices have to be better. We need guys that are dialed in and ready to go. And I could see that being like the Bruins looking at that group and being like, all right, we need more of that. But you still don't have scoring. Like, you can be a more intense team. You can be a more physical team. You can stick up for one another. You can have all this stuff. But isn't the best way to take another big step forward is winning? And it's like,
Oh, that would help.
I look at, let's say like Tanner Jeannot and all these guys are really physical and they set the right tone, and the younger guys fall in lockstep with them and all that stuff. But that only goes so far when you're still losing 4-1. Or even if they're expecting like the defense and the goaltending to be better, right? And I don't think that's a stretch to say that, right? That Swayman and the defense is going to be a lot better. But okay, so are you losing 2-1? Like, I think you look at what this team's fatal flaw was this last year, in a year where a whole lot went wrong. I think we all agree with that. But the one thing that I don't think you can fix internally, and the one thing that's not an easy fix, is just skill and offensive generation. You had to get that on the open market. And yes, maybe you weren't able to get a Besser or someone like that, but would you rather give 3.4 to Tanner Jeannot, or like Andrew Mangiapane or Jack Roslovic, or, Evgeny Dadonov, who's, maybe he's cashed out, but could be a 20-goal guy. Like, it's almost like, I think if you're able to find another type of Arvidsson, like a $3-4 million player that can score 20 goals. Maybe he's more of 15 goals at this point, but still a guy that adds that scoring punch. I'd rather that than what you're doing right now, because I like almost in a vacuum. And I know I'm rambling quite a bit, Evan, so apologies. But okay. I feel like when you're signing all these players, I like some of these guys individually, and I think we'll kind of go through that. Like, I don't hate like, oh, Corrali is a good veteran guy to bring in. Easymont's kind of a prick, and you kind of can use that. But when it's like 6 or 7 or 8 of these guys, and you look at like the fact you still have Beecher and Kastelik and Husnadinov and all these other players, not even counting the younger players that you hope cut into the lineup. I just look at that the roster right now, and I try to figure out like what the 4 lines are going to be. There's like 5. There's like 5 lines, of which most of them are like bottom 6 level players right now. It's just, it feels like a stretch to expect that like the offense is just going to come naturally, or that they'll be able to weather the storm. Where I feel like I think you have to work a whole lot just to generate chances, let alone score goals.
To me, and this is pure speculation, I think they looked at this free agent market. I think they looked at the roster, and I think, early in the offseason, I think they realized they are not going to improve dramatically enough via free agency, maybe even not the trade market. And that's why they went the way they did in the draft, where it was all high upside. It was all skill guys. It was some projects on defense, all those different things, because I think they realized this is a middling team. This is a middling team. And even I feel that way. I feel that even stronger after the moves they made, which I don't agree with. I think you look at, you hit on all those things. Like, they could not score last year. They couldn't generate offense last year. Ty Anderson made a great point to me. We were walking to CVS to get a drink. It sounds like an alcoholic, but to get a Gatorades.
I mean, did you see that free agency class? I don't blame you.
Gotta get myself a Bud Light at a CVS. But and he mentioned a great point. He said, if you look at the wins they had last year, it was either like a Pastrnak or a geeky takeover, or whoever was in net was like outstanding. And feels like that's going to be the same thing again this year. And that to me feels that it shows again why, like, they're a retooling team. They're completely a retooling team. This is not it's a deep roster, but a mid roster. Like, at their best, at this team's best, it's competing for a playoff spot. I'm not going to say in the playoffs, but like at its best, this is a team that's in and around the mix. You need guys like Elias Lindholm to be much better. You need Pastrnak to continue the play that he had last year. You need Morgan Geekie to continue to be a 30-goal guy, which is no guarantee. No guarantee. You need Pavel Zacha to step up. You need Casey Middlestat to be consistently productive. You need Charlie McAvoy to be much better than he was last season. You need Hampus Lindholm to be okay after his injury and revert back to what he was in the fall. Arvidsson. You need Jeremy Swayman to be way better than he was last season. And that's just to get you to what? The second wild card spot? The first wild card spot? And that to me is where the extra scoring comes in. And you hit on some guys like Roslovic or Dadonov who no guarantees, but have more of an offensive upside. With Jeannot, Eyssimont, Kuraly, you're leaning into what your problem was last year. Big and slow. And Connor, you and I talked about this a lot in the past season. They didn't have enough veteran guys in the room. Clearly. Guys like Shattenkirk were gone, Maroon, you lost Bergeron and Krejci and all these guys over the past bunch of years. So yeah, bring in some character guys for sure on 1 or 2 year deals on under $2 million. Like Eyssimont, as you said, alone, fine. Kuraly alone, fine. Jeannot for 5 years. Like
at 3.4 is also like I can't tell which part is like gives me more trepidation, right? Is it the term or is it the payout?
Like, I mean, has there ever been a deal where you look at more and say like, oh, that's going to age like milk? Like that's going to be something they're looking to buy out after year 3. And it's not going to
Martian's 6-year deal. Maybe that one's going to age like, but he's going to be a hell of a player for the first 2 or 3.
You want to you want to cup with him before, and I imagine the Panthers are going to find a way to win another one. But like to become slower, and to me it feels like they're hoping this can be 23-24. Where you bring in these veteran guys and hope that something comes together. The only thing is those guys had some offensive upside. Like James Van Riemsdyk had upside. Shattenkirk had some upside on that. This is just more big and slow. And like, with Tanner Jeannot, like, and this point's been made by more people, but like you dealt Frederick, which was a good move. You dealt Brazeau, which was a good move. So you bring in Tanner Jeannot, who you don't know, who has been other places. Teams have realized he ain't the guy, all these different things. And suddenly you bring him in on a 5-year deal. 5 years. That's what I don't get. And I don't know Tanner Jeannot. I don't know what he's like in the room. But I can't find anything that he's like this phenomenal leader. That he's going to come in and like wheel these guys along. Like I haven't seen it. Maybe it's there and they better hope it's there. But that's where I like, this is just a continuation of last year. And again, at their best, they're going to be a middling team. At their worst, are we sitting here 11 months from now going, number 1 pick's not far away? Like, they shouldn't. The lot would have to go wrong for that. But are they a top 10? Are they a lottery team again?
I mean,
wouldn't shock me.
It all comes down to, it's almost like, wouldn't the worst case scenario be like the fact that the goaltending and the defense stabilizes, which I think is not out of the question, right? Like, I don't think it's either putting on the fan service or being unrealistic of like Swayman bounces back, the defense tightens up, especially with Lindholm and McAvoy coming back from injury. Could totally see that happening. So at that point, are you in the worst spot where you still can't score? So that means instead of being a dreadful team where you're at least getting a draft pick out of it, you're like middle of the pack and just stuck in no man's land where it's all of a sudden like, well, we bottomed out 1 year. We got James Hagens, which is great, but we can't add another great defenseman with a top 10 pick or another center or a scoring wing or something like that, right? I think you have to also see what happens. And it all comes down to, I think, just the offense part of it, right? Like, and you just look at the team and it's just so hard right now to forecast who's going to go where. Like, it's not even counting the fact that, all right, you have all these bottom 6 level players, right? And it's like, not even now counting the fact, like, all right, if this was a year where, you sign 1 or 2, instead of throwing all that money, you bring in Arvidsson, you bring in another scoring guy, like let's say you give $4.5 million, because of the way the cap's jumping up, to Roslovic, which like big body, kind of can skate pretty well, but you really don't know what you're getting offensively, but it has shown that he can be a 20-goal guy, right? Let's say that's a big thing, and you bring in one of Eyssimont, what have you. A little less crowded. I'd rather you have that where you're taking a few flyers on guys. You're trying to add like a different dynamic with Arvidsson and another winger. And you're also giving the opportunity for guys like Matt Poitras and Fraser Minton and Fabian Lysell and Georgi Markulov, all these guys. I'd rather give them an extended window to see if they can do something in a year where, based on the way they've built it right now, it feels like they are still treading water, right, in terms of how competitive they're going to be. They want to be competitive, but you're also, I think, setting reasonable expectations with the group you have right now. So Don Sweeney mentioned that, they're focusing in on, competitiveness and intensity in training camp and in practices and all that stuff. But also when you're, a head coach in Mako Sturm, who's in his first year ever as an NHL head coach, you want to make a good impression. You want to get off to a hot start. Of course you want to give like the younger players the rope, but when you're in that spot where it's the last day of camp and you got to cut down the roster and it's like, oh, Matty had a few good games, and he liked Fabian in that one he scored in the preseason finale, but we could just put Corrali and a few of those other guys there. We know they played in the NHL, they're responsible. Like, we need to be slow and steady and responsible to start things out on the right foot, right? Like, can't you just see that kind of happening where
I can.
Where it's not just the fact that you have the roster spots filled, but you almost have like a safety blanket now where it is, if you're a coach and you're in that spot where you have the opportunity to turn to veteran guys as opposed to taking the risk, even if it leads to greater results down the road with, let's say, a younger player like a Minton, right? I'd rather you have a spot open for Minton where you look at it and you roll the whole year with them. You have some growing pains, but at the end of the year, if Minton, let's say ends the year on a 10-game run where he's got 4 goals and 2 assists and is playing better, and you feel good about where he's going to be next year in 26-27, and Hagens is there, you feel a lot better where you're going to be. And it's like at the end of this year, if it's going to be another situation like this past season where instead of giving a lot of those younger players an extended run, you had Vinny Lettieri and Riley Tufte, who's also back, and Max Jones, and all these other players, Oliver Wahlstrom. You get to the end of the year and you're like, what was all this for, when we're seeing what Minton and all these other players could do instead? Like, I don't want it to be a situation where you go to the end of this Bruins season, whatever the results are, and you look and you're like, well, they have Hagens, but man, I can't believe they only gave Minton 18 games and we got 60 games of Genoa with four goals and a bunch of penalties, or any one of these other guys they signed. Like, if that's what it ends up being,
tried to
then
fight
it's another
Sam
year
Bennett,
of wasting
though, Connor. He everybody felt taller when Tanner Genoa was on the ice. So that was most important.
And you know what the Panthers do? They laugh on the way back to the locker room, be like, what a bunch of fucking losers, as they beat you like 7-1. Like, that's the whole thing. Like, they can be more physical, but if you're in a spot where, you can have that physicality and step up for one another, best way to beat a team like the Panthers, these teams that drive you nuts, is kick their ass on the ice, because otherwise they're going to laugh at you and then go to
beat
work.
Them on the scoreboard.
Yes.
I want to get into the younger guy stuff. I want to get into just continuing to parse through this day. But first, our good friends over at Prizepicks, they never make us feel bad, thankfully. They always make us feel great. Prizepicks. On Prizepicks, you can mix and match player projections from different sports. Combine your favorite basketball players with players from baseball, hockey, esports, and much more. Right now, that's a lot of baseball, which makes it more fun. You can never hate that. And then also Prizepicks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure when my picks hit. I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. The app is super easy to use, which is the most fun thing. To create a lineup, all you have to do is pick more or less on a few player stats for your shot to win up to 2,000 times your money. And we're recording this on a Tuesday. People listen on a Wednesday, but for next Tuesday, it's Taco Tuesday. Every Tuesday, Prizepicks will discount several projections on the board, usually by 15 to 25%. So make sure to go download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, that's code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prizepicks, run your game, or maybe fight your game like the Bruins. Fight your game. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Forecheck hard. Don't run. Don't be speedy. Be slow. But those are our good friends over at Prizepicks. Well, you were talking about a lot of things there. You mentioned James Hagens, who, by the way, every time I watch him on the ice, I'm like, I can't believe he's actually a Bruin. Like, that's they're gonna screw this up. They're gonna screw it up
in a day full of, I think, especially if you're navigating through Twitter, a day of misery and confusion for a lot of Bruins fans, expecting something bigger. Not to be sunshine and rainbows, but there's only so much you gain from some of these drills, some of the first few days of dev camp. that dude is a elite skater. If he skates like that, he's going to create chances. I'm not saying the guy's going to be a point per game kind of guy, but ice opens up when he has the puck on his stick. He's a very gifted player, and it validates when you see him out there. And I can't wait to see him on Thursday when they do the scrimmage of what he's going to do out there, because he looks very good.
His edge work is insane. I will say, I feel like when you're feeling yourself on the ice, you think you look like James Hagens. Like, you in your head, you're like, yeah, I look like this. You don't look anything like it, but like, just incredible skater. But you mentioned Hagens, and to me, it feels like they're treading water with these moves until Hagens comes along, until the draft picks they've made this year come in, and I that to me is the biggest thing. And they could tread it better. That's the thing. Like, I think all along this coming season was going to be like, they were going to be a middle of the pack team, but it was okay because you had this draft. Hagens was going to likely come in next season. Like, you're going to be better. He's going to kind of fit everything into place, all these different things, but you got bigger and slower. And like that, why tread water with that? Like, I said this to Mark Diver when they got Arvidsson. I said this when like the word on the street was Jordan Harris. I said, I'm for taking flyers on anybody. Like, this is the type of season to do it. You take flyers on those kinds of guys, whether it's a Jordan Harris or a Victor Arvidsson. You just see what they got. And there are young guys out there that are the same type of thing. The AHL player, I'm going to mispronounce his name, but Blummel, like, had 70-something points with the Texas Stars last year. Like, take a flyer on him. See what he has. Like that. This is the season to do it. This is also the season to see what some of your younger guys have. Matt Poitras, Fraser Minten. I know people are torn on Fabian Lysell, but he fits into there as well. Georgi Merkulov, all these different young guys. And I'm not saying that they're going to be lineup regulars or anything like that, but wouldn't this be the perfect season to see what those guys can give you? And I'm not saying that they're officially written off. Like, they can still make the team, but can they? Like, I know they preach Don Sweeney's favorite phrase is internal competition. And he says it every year. He said it every year since Jack Studnicka in 2020 and like before
Florida Panther Jack Studnicka.
Florida Panthers legend Jack Studnicka. He's going to be hanging out at the elbow room. But like, do we have any faith that, Marco Sturm, as you said, a first-time NHL head coach, is going to be lenient with these guys? And this is why, like, again, they said this with Jim Montgomery was hired. Oh, better with the younger players. A better voice for the younger guys. And I'll give Sturm the benefit of the doubt. We don't know yet. We've never seen Marco Sturm run a practice, coach a game, anything. But like, just judging off past NHL head coaches, do you really see younger guys making this roster with all, considering like Fraser Minten would have been, potential bottom six, center, a third line center. Matt Poitras, we didn't know where he was going to fit before. Now we really have no idea. Fabian Lysell, is he going to be in the top six? Is he, what role are they going to give him? Merkulov, all these guys. Lakshmelis has been a guy that's been talked about. I don't see how, unless they light it up and are consistent as hell in camp and scrimmages before the season starts.
Yeah, I think it also comes down to, the younger players are probably going to go through their fair share of struggles, right? But I think you look at all those players you mentioned, and there's no guarantee, right? But don't they all have higher ceilings than like the boatload of players you brought in, right? Like,
yes.
That's the whole thing when it comes down to like, let's do the exercise of like, what is like the Bruins' fourth line? Because like, who do you think their fourth line is? And then like, let's look at who's left over that we're either not putting in the lineup or that we're elevating to the third line, right? Like those two lines, is your third line like Husnudinov, Corrali, and like Kastelik?
No, you can't. That's a fourth line. That's more of like Husnudinov might be your third line, but like, I guess like Minten or Poitras, one of them has to center that third line. This is the year to do it.
Because right? Like if you got all these other guys, right, like Corrali, Asimont, all these players, like what is their ceiling? What's a good year for a lot of those players? Like Asimont, if he gives you 10 goals and 20 points and he's a prick and he gives you energy and puts shots on net, brings value. Corrali, the same thing. Like Corrali, I have not watched as much of him since he's gone to Columbus, but sneaky great skater for his size. But like if he kills penalties, gives you 15 points, veteran guy, okay, all these types of players. But then once you start digging more into it, like how much is Tanner Jeannot going to give you production wise? How much is Husnudinov like reasonably going to give you when it's like, all right, Fraser Minton could go through a whole year where he really struggles, but could you see a scenario where I'm not saying he's going to pop off for 50 points, but could end the year with like 30, 35? And if it's a pretty good year, like something like that, like Matt Poitras, could he be a 35-point guy, if not more? I almost feel like any one of those guys, Lysell, could he be a bust? Could he be a guy that just after 20 games, you're like, we're done? Or can he give you 14 goals and, 18 assists? Like, there's more upside with some of those players.
We've done this. We've done this.
We do this every time.
This sounds like us throughout the entire last season.
It does.
Are we really going to do another full season of this? Like,
yes.
This is why I said it.
Yes.
Yes. You said it in the elevator. You were like, this is the thing. And like, this is what's frustrating to me is like, you had so many middle six guys before. Now you have even more. Or not even middle six guys.
Bottom six guys.
You have so many bottom six guys before. And now you have so many more bottom six guys. And the other thing is like, not to get to like, nitpicking everything, but like they qualify Beecher and you bring in
I forgot about Beecher too.
Beecher's in there as well. Like you have all these guys, like the Bruins cap space Twitter account, that guy, he's going to have to create like 7 more like, rows. And that to me.
What about Riley Duran?
Riley Duran.
John Farinacci.
Mark McLaughlin must be like, thank God I'm done with that place.
I know,
I'm out. And so again, like this is the thing. Like if you isolate them, what Asamont can give you, what Corrali can give you, what Tanner Jeannot could give you on a 1 or 2 year deal at better money. Like, yeah, it's all good isolated, but then you put them all together. And this is why, again, like I said this after they hired Sturm, they want to win games 3-2. They want to win games 2-1. They want games to be low scoring, defense focused, kill penalties well. That's what they want. But again, do you have enough scoring to win 3-2? Do you have enough scoring to even get you consistently 3 goals a game? I don't think you do. I don't. And you're going to need to see more out of the power play, which Arvidsson should help. And your, Steve Spott, your assistant coach that you brought in, should help with that. But that's no guarantee. So again, that's why like it just feels like the same thing. And yeah, it's the same middling team. They're in a retool, absolutely, but take chances, take flyers on guys. And it's funny because like after the draft, it's like, all right, they've switched philosophies, and after the deadline, they've switched philosophies. They're fast,
going on upside,
speed, upside, offense, all those things. And then you do this, like, and people speculate, is it Cam Neely? Seem like Neely guys. Like, why is there this divide? Why are you doing 2 different things? And I'm not saying every guy's got to be, high end skill, no physicality. You do need physicality. We all understand that, and it's correct. But this much of it, and none of the other side, none of the high end offensive talent. And you even you named off a bunch: Roslovic, Dadonov, different guys that like, all right, you might have something there. Even Arvidsson fits that, like a 5th round pick for $4 million for a guy you can probably pencil in your middle 6. Yeah, why not? Like nothing wrong with that. But I don't want to say they're punting, but I think they're just saying, all right, the core is what it is. Nobody can move. They have to rebound. We're going to put guys around them who are going to forecheck like crazy and try to hit everything that moves and win low scoring games. That's to me in a nutshell, that's the 25-26 Bruins.
Pretty much. Yeah. And it's almost, again, like just waiting for the next wave of talent, but sure would help you in terms of, even if like this year, the results are what they are, wouldn't you feel better that, yes, you got guys like Hagens and Moore and Zellers and all these players you feel good about? Wouldn't also help you that by the time they're ready, you also have like a player in Minton or someone else that feels like they're ready to roll with that group? Like, I don't know why you wouldn't lean into more of that as well. So I don't know. It's frustrating. I don't know. It's probably frustrating is the right word. I feel like this day has broken my brain in terms of just trying to figure out what like the vision is of where they want to be and what they're trying to build beyond just like getting their house in order, almost like tied, like, righting the ship in terms of just accountability, setting the tone, which like, I guess if that's what you want to prioritize, but you also need to find ways to score. It's best. You need to score in order to win these games. And right now it's like, I look at where the offense is coming from beyond 88, like
39.
I don't know. Well, even then, like it's, Sweeney mentioned that when they do these things of projecting and forecasting for next year, they never want to go through, he said, of like expecting a career year or anything like that. But like, you kind of need Geeky to not be, we've mentioned this before that like, oh, maybe if shooting percentage dips, but he's still like a middle 6, 15, 20 goal guy, still bring you value for especially what that contract is going to look like in a couple of years. So I get it. No, you need him to be a 30 goal guy. Like that's the end of and you need Elias Lindholm. You know how we ended the year on a high note, and we were all like, "Oh, that's encouraging." Yeah, he better keep up that pace because he has to be a 70-point guy. Like, it's you're asking like, Sweeney. Ty asked him about like, just do you think you have enough in place to reasonably score beyond the power play, like at 5-on-5, where again, most of the game is played, and he mentioned that if they play the way they should be, that they think they can generate enough offense. We'll see. I would love to be proven wrong with that. But I just look at the personnel there, barring they find the secret sauce or Mako Sturm just drastically augments that offensive approach. And I think we talked about this before, like maybe just having more of a shot volume, greasy approach is what you need to do. And maybe you can get a little bit more offense that way. But in terms of just the personnel there, it's like you kind of have to look across the roster. And this is what we usually do when we get to points of like the preseason or we start like forecasting a year of setting reasonable expectations for a lot of players, right? Like, oh, this guy can take a little step forward here and gives you 2-3 more goals and takes a step forward. You feel good about where they are. Now you got to take some reaches for a lot of players just to get them into a somewhat solid offensive grouping. Like, no, you need Tanner Jeannot to be a 15-goal guy, and you need Asimont to give you 10 goals, and you need Arvidsson to be a 20-goal guy again, and you need Geeky to keep up that 30-goal pace. And like, you got to go down the list. We need Loride to be a 40-point guy and feel really confident maybe running the power. The list goes on and on, where it's a lot of guys you need to take a big step forward, I think, offensively, just for you to break even and getting to where you like need to be like a somewhat competent offensive grouping, not a team that's top 5, just to be like a functioning offense. It doesn't have to work so hard like they did this past year. And a lot of times it led to nothing.
As you were talking, I was writing down guys. And it's funny because I think, I hope our listeners love this when we can come on and they can vent with us. Maybe they're yelling at their screen. They're yelling at us. They disagree or agree with us. If you want to continue to do that, make sure to go subscribe to Bruins Ringside on YouTube. Poke the Bear, Pucks with Haggs, Bruins Beat, live streams throughout the off season, all that different stuff. Like, turn on notifications, subscribe. And then also make sure, if you don't like looking at us, I am kind of sweaty right now, Connor. I walk to and from Warrior, so I'm still like, it's like 90 degrees out. I am still sweating. You don't want to see it.
I'm just disheveled too, so.
If you, after today, especially long day, make sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Maybe we'll sing for you just for that.
Yeah.
And then make sure to go subscribe to CLNS's other great stuff, Patriots Press Pass, Celtics All Access, all that great stuff. Guys, I wrote down guys you're going to need really good years out of. And this is, to me, just to be contending. This is not like, oh, you're a cup contender if you have this, and this. Like, this is, well, the way the roster is, this is to contend for a playoff spot. This is to be in the mix, right? Pastrnak goes without saying. Morgan Geeky, Pavel Zacha, Elias Lindholm, Casey Middlestat. Those are my 5 guys at forward that, like, if you can get 4 out of 5 of those to be where they should be or better, you're in and around the playoffs. You're around it. You haven't gained speed this offseason. You haven't gained offense. So you're dealing with what you got. On D, you hit it with Lowry. You're going to need him to be more defensively responsible, but also, continue to up his offensive production. Hampus Lindholm returning, Charlie McAvoy, and you need Nikita Zadorov to be better. So like those 4 guys. And then you need Jeremy Swayman to play up to his contract, which I think is possible. I think with a full training camp, that is not an impossible thing. But you need like 4 out of 5 of those forwards. You need like 3 out of 4 of your D. You desperately need Jeremy Swayman to be at his best. And that's just to be like middle of the pack. That's to be picking what? 15th, 17th at best. Look, that's best case scenario. Worst case is Middlestat doesn't work. Zacha without Pastrnak isn't much. Geeky regresses. Lindholm is more what he was in the first half than the second. Pastrnak, doesn't really matter because no one else is doing anything around him. And then on D, it's, Hampus Lindholm's hurt, but, since surgery and everything, he's not the same. Charlie McAvoy without guys around him. Low rise, the same.
Charlie McAvoy runs into the Minnesota Wild doctors again.
That's right. And you're good. Your head's falling off. You're fine. You can play. Yeah. So again, that's the thing with this team. And look, they have 2 first-round picks next year. So we should start previewing 2026 NHL draft prospects. I'm saying right now,
Gavin McKenna.
Here and then.
Yeah,
Gavin
let's
McKenna,
do it.
I'll say
July 1st.
July 1st, 2025. I'm going. There's 2 guys. They have 2 first-round picks, right? Gavin McKenna's obvious, so I'll go with Gavin McKenna's 1. I'm gonna go Casey Mutrin. The Bruins are gonna draft Casey Mutrin, who is committed to Boston College, is a center. So there's gonna be more BC centers. But he's 6'2", 2-way centerman, would look great in an NHL team's middle six someday. They're drafting Casey Mutrin. That's who I got. But so in all seriousness, though, we've got to remember this episode because that actually wouldn't be crazy from happening.
Write it down.
The reality is they have 2 first-round picks. And so the Leafs, I said this to you today, so what are the Leafs? Are they 20, 21, 22? Are they lower? And then what are the Bruins? Are you picking 11th? Are you picking 15th? Are you picking 7th again? 7th, there would be a huge problem. That's really bad. I think you're picking more in the teens. You're picking somewhere in 14 to 17 range.
Yeah, because I think it depends on just how the defense is. Because I think you just look at the forward grouping.
Yeah, maybe we're being a little too negative, but I don't know. Look at their forward group right now. Compare that to other teams that are either outside the playoff picture or just made the playoffs but aren't like the Florida or a Tampa or an established maybe Atlantic power, right? Like Florida, Toronto, even. Do you have a better forward grouping than the Red Wings? Who has more skill? I'd say the Red Wings do. Who has more skill? Yeah. Who has more skill, you or Montreal? Montreal. Oh my God.
What about Ottawa?
Ottawa does too. I think.
There's so many guys that it feels like on all these teams that just have higher. It's not even saying it to your point you mentioned earlier. It's not like everyone has to be small and skilled and all that stuff, but the offensive ceiling for a lot of teams is so much higher than yours just because you have so many guys that can be good in what their roles are, but can only they can only pull on the rope so hard, right? In terms of just what they can do offensively. And you've just got so much of your roster is set up like that it's just, I don't know what the other shoe is that has to drop beyond just got a lot of players that can only give you so much in terms of offense. That's why it's weird to gauge it that way.
Oh, there are more trades coming. I literally am grabbing my magnesium. Holding it. I just like a stress thing. Are there more trades coming? Are there we were sitting next to each other today and looking at the roster, and it's you're not trading guys you just signed. But even if you dealt Zacha for something else, you need Zacha. You need Pavel Zacha. That's what I don't get.
You need Casey Middlestat now.
You need Casey Middlestat. Is Johnny Beecher gone? And here's the other thing. We can agree, and I think everybody can agree, you were not going to likely get an Ehlers, who, by the way, still hasn't signed at the time of recording. You were not in free agency going to magically reinvigorate your top 6. That wasn't going to happen. The class was not like that. Marner was already gone. As I said, though, Connor, he did end up in black and gold. So I'll take that win too. But it wasn't happening. That was not going to happen. But as we've said, as you've said, you could have got players with higher offensive upsides, and you didn't. And again, you mentioned other teams having higher offensive upsides. You need to hope Swayman is at his best. You need to hope your defense is much better. And that's not out of the question. It's not. This isn't impossible. Swayman should be better. Your defense should be better. You should be better structured. All these different things. But you still are so severely lacking offense. So severely. So again, I guess, last season you turn a couple of those losses into wins. You're more in it, I guess. And that's what having guys like Lindholm being better, Middlestat or Zacha or Hampus Lindholm back would help with. But that's where they're a middling team. This is a middle of the road team, at best. at best. This is a middle of the pack team, and that's where we're at. That's where we're at. As I sit here sweating my ass off.
Let's talk more about James Hagens.
Yeah, right. Shouldn't we talk? We should talk about James Hagens. I got to put my AC on these. Like sometimes I hate hearing it in the background, but like I remember one time I interviewed Fabian Lysell when I just moved into this place, and there was no I didn't have ACs in yet or anything, and I was sitting interviewing him and just like drenched in sweat. And the funniest part was he was also in a house that had no air conditioning that he just moved into, and he was drenched in sweat, and it was disgusting. But that's this time of year.
It's awful. There was one time I think I did a podcast here with you where I think I went on like a run before and like was done like clearly like you showered and all that stuff, but then you still like your internal temperature is still pretty like yeah. So I sat down thinking I was all good to go. I just immediately felt like I was just dying. I was like, he definitely can't tell. And then I get to feel like there's always that one bead of sweat that like goes here. I'm like, I look like I look like I just walked out of fucking water country. Like it's not great.
It's like in Seinfeld. I look like the sniffing accountant, if people remember that reference. Yeah, I mean, it's just look. We'll see if they make any trades. We'll see if any young guys make the roster out of camp. I will believe that when I'll see. I have to see that to believe it. I mean, my God. So we'll see what ends up happening with that. But yeah, not the greatest day of free agency. Still though, like. Nice to watch James Hagens dipsy dangle around people out there. Edge work, looks good. All those different things, man. He does look damn good. And you know what? Here's the other thing. He's got the personality to back it up. That's why, like, I do think you have something here. Obviously, on the ice, you certainly do. And I don't know if James Hagens is going to be like, your next captain or future captain or a vocal leader or things like that. But in terms of marketability, hell of a kid to market. Like,
he's a gamer.
First day says like you'd have to cut my leg off not to be out here after sleeping in the airport the night before. Like that's the guy you want on your team. And that's the guy you want in the NHL. Like you want your stars to have those kinds of personalities. And he has one. When was the last time they had a name or a player like this that was marketable, that had hype, that like, our great producer Amit put out a video of James Hagens just like taking shots on net first day development camp. In like 15 hours, it has 4,000 views. Like, fans care. When was the last time? Pastrnak has become a name, but when he was drafted, he was not like, he was good in dev camp and stuff, but he was not like, looked at the way Hagens was looked at. Sagan was really like the last one.
Probably
the last.
Yeah, probably the last one. So
the marketability, I think it helps. I do. I think it absolutely helps.
They're going to need it.
They're gonna be stuff during the year like, remember, Bruins are like, we have James Hagens, in the system. Don't forget, they'll be posting his highlights on Friday night Hockey East games on Nesson. But yeah, we'll see 2 more days of dev camp. Obviously, the big thing will be the scrimmage Wednesday, which you'll probably listen to this. Battle drills. So if I would recommend if you're gonna come to dev camp, come Thursday because that's the big scrimmage day. You get to see stuff. And if you want to go Wednesday as you're listening to this, I would do the same because it's a lot of battles and things like that. So, yeah, and you have a big story coming soon too. Do you want to tease it? Do you want to just leave it at like big story? What do you want to?
Yeah, we got a few in the pipeline. We got one that involves one James Hagens, so that'll be a fun one. And yeah,
Connor took him to Dunks and showed him,
yes, exactly.
What to get.
So, yeah, exactly. The guy from I know he's a local guy, guy from Long Island, but I don't
That's right.
That's right. Apparently, they don't have any Dunkin' in Long Island. I don't know what's going on over there. Well, it's like how it is in like New York, right? They always have a Dunkin', but it's next to like a Baskin Robbins. I know they're teamed up, but I don't know what they do down in New York. You ask for like a little bit of like milk with it, and I think they just put like a vanilla scoop in there. There's too much dairy. They don't know what they're doing down there. Yeah, it's not the same.
But so you have stuff coming. Obviously, we will have more coverage, podcasts, all that great stuff coming in the next future days, weeks, months ahead. And that's Poke the Bear, episode 343. That's Conor Ryan. I'm Evan Marinofski, Poke the Bear listeners. You have a great rest of your week.